As a mother of 3 children, the one thing that's important to me is that children in the community have the basic essentials of school uniform, shoes, food on the table and a bed to sleep in. It breaks my heart to think that there are children out there who don't have those basic things. And knowing how upset I would be as a mother, I think that's what drives me to make sure that the Link Foundation helps as many children as possible.
My role on a day-to-day basis really is to see firsthand just how many families there are in desperate need, and also to work very closely with our partners, or referees if you like, so health visitors, children's centre workers, people who can really identify a need within a family.
I first met Heidi when she was a teen mum. She was sleeping on her mum's sofa, but she was pregnant, so eventually she was given a flat. But this flat was dirty and really not fit for habitation, but she cleaned it up really beautifully. And when I went to see her when the baby was just born, she said, you know, what would be really valuable if she could have some help carpeting the flat.
There was no underlay, there was literally nothing, and my children were crawling and moving around. And I thought a carpet is needed. So I spoke to one of my health visitors, and she said that there was a charity called the Link Foundation which would help towards the costs.
We filled out the Link Foundation form and requested some money for carpets.
Bye. See you soon.
And with that we were able to carpet a couple of rooms for her. It just made her life so much better. She became very house proud, and she had somewhere safe to put her baby down when she started to crawl. It really improved her daughters at very early years.
We work within Maidenhead, Slough, Bracknell, Ascot and Windsor, and within those very affluent areas there are pockets of poverty. Every month we're surprised by the people who approach us. It doesn't matter what their background is, where they're from or why they're even there. We want to access as many children as possible. For many of these families it is very basic essentials that they need.
There was no one else to turn to. Social services couldn't help. My parents basically didn't have the finances to help. I was feeding 3 people for the money of 2 people.
I first met James when he had Marshall with him for a few years, and Erin had just landed overnight really. They had no space to live in, they had no money for clothes.
Sometimes the trustees and myself of the Link Foundation have to make some difficult decisions, and we have to decide which family we can help.
Sometimes it can be quite tough.
Louise Davies said, you know, the Link Foundation may be able to help you, and the help came. You know, it gave us a new start.
Have you got a pen? Just take my number. There is a myth around them, you know, that they're on the benefits and, you know, they get a lot of help from the government. Quite a lot of our families, the mother and father are working, they're just on very low income, on the minimum wage, and they are really struggling.
We work really closely with the Link Foundation, especially reaching out to our families, particularly in refuge and within the children's services teams, who really need that support.
My life before I came into refuge was very sad, very lonely, very isolated, as my husband had stopped me seeing family and friends. I actually phoned my sister and told her I wanted to leave. She came to the house, and myself and my 5 children left the house. Didn't realise not till we got to my sister's house that my daughter had got no shoes on.
We get a lot of vulnerable women in, initially to the refuge, that aren't entitled to any kind of welfare benefits. So we always put an application in for those women, and their Link has been very generous to provide vouchers for us to help provide food and clothing for the women and children that come in that situation.
It is sometimes quite clear the ones we have to help first. That would be food, clothing, a bed, a cot, something that you really need to have. It's horrible for us to think that any child is stigmatised. So if we know we can give them the correct school uniform, that we can give them shoes that actually don't have holes in them.
It's not about having the most expensive school shoes, it's about their children not standing out for being different because they're in school uniform that's too small or is a very worn-out hand-me-down. The same with a pram, just to have something to put children in that's safe as well. That's what it's about. It's about putting people on an even footing with everybody else because they're fighting on every other front anyway. So we're just trying to get them, you know, one step up the ladder, really.
And then not to forget the little things like all the Easter eggs we get at Easter time and Christmas time. We get a lot of toys donated.
They usually give us vouchers so that they can go and get some Christmas dinner or again get some Christmas presents for the kids, and that has just been absolutely invaluable, and we'd be lost without that support.
Every month we have families where, for example, one of the parents has become ill and the other parent has had to leave their job, and the family has then been plunged into poverty.
I can remember very together, a parent actually came to see me whose husband had left her and 4 children, and we must have been talking for an hour and a half. This lady had it all together, and at the end of the conversation I just said, "And how are things financially?" And at that point the lady just lost it completely and explained that neighbours had been leaving food on the doorstep because there was no food in the house.
We think we've seen everything, and then something happens and you go, you know, how does that family cope? And they have to cope.
I had to very strongly encourage her to apply to the Link Foundation, and that enabled her to put food in the fridge actually, and she was completely overwhelmed because people in her position who have never had to ask for anything before find it very difficult to accept help, but it made all the difference to her children.
What we're trying to do with this video is just so that everyone can understand what the Link Foundation does and how we help in the community, and that we're there for children and their families.
Hello, Claire Brackenbury speaking. If the link wasn't there, it would be very difficult indeed. A lot of places that I would have been able to apply to help with young children are no longer there.
We are staffed purely by volunteers, which means that over the last 6 years we have been able to keep our overheads at 3%.
People hit financial difficulties, financial bumps in the road all the time. And without the Link Foundation, they really would have nowhere to turn apart from maybe, loan sharks.
And I look at the trustees at the meeting every month. They're so gratified whenever people do feedback to us that there has been a success.
My life now is completely different. It's very busy still with all the children, but now I actually work for Women's Aid, so I can actually give back.
We just have so many families that send in thank you letters every month who are so hugely grateful for the work the charity does.
There are more things that we need, but my partner is working now. Things are a lot easier.
We actually feel that at least we're giving something back. You know, whatever it is, we've made their life just a little bit better.